Hello, everyone. It's Eric Quick and Colleen Blake, and welcome back to Bath Time to Boardroom, where we bring you stories of working parents or parents-to-be and how they now blend work, life, and all the challenges that come with it. We're starting our 5th season, and this season is all about dads. Today, you'll get a quick podcast as I'm excited to co-host with my wife, Nina, again, who's back this week. Colleen has taken some well-deserved time off, but she'll be back in late June. Today, we're talking, given the NBA's playoffs, we're talking with a sports podcaster. Nina, why don't you take it away?
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. This is so much fun. Today, we're talking with Brian Kamenetzky, a longtime writer, radio host, and podcaster, primarily working in sports and more specifically covering the LA Lakers and the NBA. He is now co-hosting Locked on Lakers, which is a daily podcast on the Lakers with about 250,000 monthly downloads and about 1.2 million year to date. He's also dad to Benjamin, Ethan, and Grace. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a reason to put the kids somewhere else for an hour. It's good.
Yes. Hopefully our kids stay out of the way while we're doing this. Sometimes that's exciting.
Yeah, my wife is taking 2 of them with her. Our in-laws are in town for the weekend, and they spent the night with my aunt-in-law, so they're all going out there to go to get some pizza. And I am taking my oldest to school when we're done. So there's only one kid in the house. He's the most self-sufficient, and so I don't think we'll be interrupted by him.
Perfect. Well, if he makes a cameo, that's all good too.
Yeah, it's all good.
So we'd love to get into it. Let's start with the bath time first.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about growing up and maybe your relationship with your brother?
Sure. It's funny. Like my brother and I you don't realize some of these things until you get a little bit older, but we actually got along extraordinarily well, by brother standards. It doesn't mean we didn't fight. It doesn't mean we didn't have arguments. I remember, there was a dent in, the drywall in the basement from one time where he sort of threw me through it. And
Oh,
at
wow.
one time he wasn't trying to kill me. He didn't know, like one time he put me and a friend in one of those freezers back in the 80s, before they had the thing where you could open it from the inside, and parents had to come down and get us out before we died. But like, other than things like that, we actually got along really well. And so that was always, I didn't know that wasn't normal until I got a little bit older and saw how some of my friends couldn't get along with their brothers, couldn't get along with their sisters, or whatever it might be.
Right. Has speaking of your parents rescuing you, I mean, was their parenting style, do you think help you guys get along? Did that have anything to do with it? Do you think it was just kind of your personalities and how you are?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think so many of these things that you end up with your kids, and whether it's how they get along or whatever, is a lot of it's just luck. And so I think they got lucky in that regard. They certainly encouraged us to do things together and be kind to each other and all of that stuff. And there wasn't a third kid. We didn't have a ton of kids in our neighborhood growing up that we could
Where
see.
did you grow up?
We grew up in St. Louis,
Okay.
in suburban St. Louis. And so now, apparently now the neighborhood's filled with kids, but at the time we didn't have a lot of that. And so when we were home, we were generally the option for someone to play with. And so I guess maybe we made it work or whatever, but I don't know if it was something special that they did, or, my boys, my 2 oldest get along extremely well as well. And I don't know why. I think it's just, a lot of it has to do with the sort of the disposition of my oldest, who just loved his little brother from the beginning. And, so maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But I mean, I have memories of my brother teaching me how to read before I went to kindergarten because he didn't want me to be stupid.
Having 2 older brothers surprises me, actually. I don't know that I had the same experience.
Yeah. No, I know I'm lucky in that. As a little brother, I know I'm lucky that I didn't take a ton of abuse.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that you say that, because our kids, Gavin and Mia, didn't get along until the pandemic, when the only other person for them to really interact with personally was each other. And so that's kind of an interesting point. And, I do think nature versus nurture, definitely having that chill disposition and ability to kind of get along with others is sometimes inherently there. So
Yeah, I mean, we
lucky
try.
her.
You do what you can to help the
Right.
kids get along and all that. But like you can't make them.
No.
And so we're very, very fortunate in that regard. But I'm glad. I mean, all it took was the collapse of the global economy and a horrible pandemic, and now the kids get along. So there's the upshot.
Right. I mean, yeah, I feel very fortunate that we had a positive come out of
Mhm.
this disaster and nightmare.
Absolutely.
But that being said, tell me more about your kids. Like, I know you mentioned that Benjamin and Ethan. Do you call them Benjamin, or do they have
I call
nicknames?
him Benjamin or Ben or some of the only thing we don't abide by is Benji. That is the one. He is named after my grandfather, who people called Ben or Benny. He was just Ben. We just like Benjamin a little bit better. And there was only one person that was sort of well, two people. One girl in his class when he was little, like it was either preschool or kindergarten, and the very, very nice woman who ran the after school program at his first elementary school. They called him Benny, but other than that, it's either Ben or Benjamin. I usually say Benjamin, but he'll usually say Ben because it's faster.
Got it. Got it. Got it. What about
It's a
Ethan?
long-winded answer for
No.
like what he calls himself, but Ethan's just Ethan.
and great. And how
There's no
is
really good nickname for Ethan. But yeah, it's funny. Like Ethan, the boys have very distinctive personalities. Where Ethan is sort of the reason that there was a 6-year gap between the second child and the third child. We had always sort of planned on having 3 kids, and then when Ethan was in preschool, it was just like, no, not only is this just too much, like he wouldn't do well with a little brother or a little sister right now. It's just he just couldn't handle it. And so that was part of the reason there was a big gap. But like, Ethan is a little bit more. I'll put it this way. Benjamin is a person, like my wife worries that when she sends me out into the world that I'm going to come home having sold the cow for magic beans. That's Benjamin. Benjamin is just inherently just has that sort of sweetness and naivete that Ethan never really had as a kid. Like I don't know if you guys have read, I think it's either This Is Not My Hat or it's like I Want My Hat Back. It's a great kids book, but at the end, it's a kind of got a dark thing. This rabbit stole a hat from a bear, and the bear essentially takes the hat back and eats the rabbit. It's a great book. It really is. It's very subversive in kind of a fun way, but it's great.
Wow.
And you don't see him eat the rabbit, but it's strongly implied. Benjamin always thought, might still think that like he just took the hat back and the rabbit like is off somewhere else and whatever. Ethan at like age 3 was like, oh, he ate the rabbit. Like, so that's the sort of the difference between the two of them.
and how does Grace play in now?
She's been great. You talk about like, the impact of the pandemic on your kids. Like she's been fantastic for morale around the house. And so like, she's a lot of fun and she's got a ton of personality and she's really sweet and cute and all that. But it's also, she is this sort of magnet for attention from her brothers, first of all, who are really nice to her, which is great. But also this thing that can, when they do fight, when they do start to argue, one can go and go play with Grace or go do something with Grace. And, I mean, 2.5-year-olds are funny and they do crazy things and goofy stuff. And it's hard, she's got a really good attitude and, is generally very active and fun to be around. So she lightens the mood around them. That said, she has because she's around older kids all the time in the two of them, she's a little dog who thinks she's a big dog. And so that's kind of how she operates. She just, where she wants to go, she goes, and who she wants to play with when we're out at the park or whatever, she goes and joins whatever group because she just assumes that everybody's there to see her.
And I'm sure she's got that feeling of security, knowing that she's got 2 big brothers that have got her back. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even at a young age, she knows, her big brothers and, what, that they're kind of a resource for her. in that way. And it helps that they are really, really good to her.
That's pretty amazing. Like, it's not amazing that I don't think it happens often. It's amazing that I'm so glad that you're experiencing that with your family.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say I am excellent at what I do as a father. Just a fantastic and wonderful, very highly skilled father. And I think that's most of what it is. I'm sure my wife has some influence there, but it's probably based on all the things I'm doing right as a dad.
So we were going to ask you, who is a better parent, you or your wife? You don't have to answer that. But
it's fine. We're better at certain things. My wife, and I think sometimes, and I'm sure you guys experience this too, like certain qualities that each of us have at certain moments are better suited to different things or aspects of an individual kid's personality. There are moments with Ethan that my wife is better at handling him than I am. Like, his personality, my personality butt heads a little bit, and she has a little bit better of a bedside manner with him sometimes. And then, there are other times where I do better with him. And, with Grace, there are times when she gets frustrated with her, and I just do better because I'm more screaming and crying tolerant than she is. The baby can cry, I don't care.
Right.
We're still going, you're coming with me, we're going in the car, we're doing whatever, and she cries. So like certain, there are aspects of her personality that at times make her a much better parent than me, and then I'm sure that flips sometimes. But overall, I think it comes out to a pretty good package.
Yeah.
The kids don't have much to complain about, I don't think.
Well, the power and the awareness, I think, is really critical. I know with Nina and I, there's just times and I'm like, I need you to tag in because this is not working.
Absolutely.
And I think over time, it's kind of like machine learning. We get smarter about when those situations are and being able to actually identify it so that it's not actually, I need to send a signal, but it's like the signal was already.
We've got this coming up. You do this because if I start in on this process, it's not going to be good for anyone.
Yeah. And as the kids go through different, growth stages and ages too, I think it changes. I know we've seen that a lot with our daughter and where, I'm able to connect with her right now, and her and her mom, maybe not so much all the time, and kind of similar with our son. So definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to be in it together for sure. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you guys do as a family.
That's fine. Like I wish there was more, and I'm starting to even like little signals I get from Ethan. Like I think he wishes there was stuff that we could do together more. And my wife is essentially works from home. She's a freelancer. I am, at different points of time I've had contract, but I've essentially been an independent contractor my entire working life. And so our work schedules are such that we're home a lot and can engage with them, but it also means our work schedules are very irregular. I have a lot of nighttime work that I've been doing with, covering sports for, 15 years, 20 years, or whatever it is. And so especially now with the baby, there's not as much time or stuff that we can all kind of do together. Like a lot of times I'll take the boys out or I'll take the kids out so that my wife can work, or vice versa. She'll do this so I can. So getting everybody together at the same time, while we have a ton of flexibility, there aren't as many whole family activities that we get to do. And I think the kids notice that, and I certainly do. But when we do, it's pretty simple. We go to the beach when we can go to the beach. We like doing that. We get them outside. We try to get everybody at least as much as possible to the kids' soccer games. And so they'll all watch each other play as much as we can. Stuff like that. It is harder to do like game nights or movie nights and stuff like that as a family. Because one person's always playing defense with baby can't play Monopoly, but she can destroy it. So, we have to figure out ways to do stuff. Ethan, for his birthday was this week. He just got he asked for a marble run. So we found one that's more for older kids. This was completely out of the blue. And so thank God for Amazon Prime, but, we found it, and like he's playing with it, and Grace is obsessed with whatever he builds. And so now she's kind of learning to be very careful with, so she doesn't break it. But generally speaking, if we're playing something, building something anyway, she comes and moves all the pieces, does, and so it's hard.
She's
Um,
Godzilla.
there's a lot, there's a lot of time that we spend around each other. They're with us a lot, but as a group of 5, that's probably one thing I wish we could do a little bit more.
And maybe that'll come as they get a little bit older. Because your kids' age range 11, 8 or 9.
11, 9, now 9,
Okay.
freshly 9, and 2.5. So like,
Yeah.
there are only so many activities that you can do. I mean, one of the we used to go to Disneyland a lot. It was perks of being a Disney employee, was we could just go. And so,
Nice.
we had a Benjamin at a birthday party there once, because it was, I am not making this up, the cheapest option that we could have for getting 10 people together to do something, was just because we could get everybody in the park for free.
Right.
And it was just a matter of, food. And so like, that was one of those work perks that, that we used to take advantage of a fair amount. So stuff like that.
I do miss that silver pass. Eric used to work at Disney.
Oh my God, it was the greatest thing.
It really is. And, when he left Disneyland, he's like, I got to turn that in. I said, well, you're going to have to take it from my dead body. So just go take it out of my wallet. I don't even want to know about it.
Nope, just do it. Yeah. And they won't work anyway. It's really, they scan it and like, you don't work here anymore. They know.
It's all right. We pay to go now. It's fine because we still do it.
The first major test of our relationship was over the silver pass,
Now we're never going again. The children will never go back to Disneyland.
Maybe someday. You never know, right? Never say never. What are you looking forward to as your kids get older? Like, what are some things that you're looking forward to? And also because this year has just been so strange, right? Like, you haven't been able to go do stuff. So even if you wanted to, you really couldn't, or might have been a little bit more risky.
Yeah.
So now that things are opening up.
It's funny. Like Ethan particularly, like, sort of, I mean, I'm very, and we have a little, with the little one, we don't, she's tethered to us for a long time, but I just sort of like, and I'm sure this is a kind of a broad and cliched answer to some degree, but it's just like, I'm interested in seeing how they developed independent of us, like going back to school, being away from us more, Benjamin starting to get next, more with middle school, and eventually get into high school, in the way that we're in a public charter in LA. And so it's got 3 campuses on it. And so at one point we're going to have one kid on each of the 3 campuses, getting them to school. I don't entirely know it. A lot of the kids, I mean, this is normal in a lot of places, but they either carpool, they take the bus, they take public transport, whatever it is. So like, him operating outside of our direct influence and doing things independently and becoming sort of more independent people. It's obviously a little frightening, but it's also kind of, that's what kids eventually do. I mean, that's how you grow up into a functioning adult. And so like, those types of things I'm certainly very interested in.
So are your kids like, do they like sports? Do they like basketball? Do they like seeing you there?
No, they don't. They are wildly indifferent to what I do for work, other than it keeps me from doing stuff with them. Right. They work is not a thing that I do. It's just a thing that is like part of my schedule. I don't care what I'm doing. So like, the idea that like, I sometimes ask questions to LeBron James, they don't care. They both are really super into soccer. They love soccer. They both play on a club team. They play all the time. They love it. They want to play with it at home. They practice twice a week, which they really love, and games on weekends and all that. They have no interest in watching sports at home. Like,
so is that commitment to soccer just innate in them because they love the sport so much, or do you have any?
No, I don't know. I think they like sport. Like Ben, they both have played and tried other things. Ben played baseball when he was really small. Mostly, I think, as we found, to be around his friends when he couldn't be on a team with his friends from school anymore. He just like, I don't really want to play them.
Familiar.
And he's a little bit of a natural athlete than Ethan. He has more better hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. I think Ethan got into soccer from watching Ben play, and then likes it because it was more with your feet and less with your hands, so he didn't have to catch and throw. He tried ball hockey at the Y, which he really likes, but then we had to stop because of the pandemic. So stuff like that. But like, in terms of like organized team sports where it's like a real thing, like ball hockey, there's no like high school ball hockey. There should be, but there isn't. And so, yeah, it's sort of soccer, but they don't watch soccer at home. They don't, have a favorite team. They don't do any of that stuff. They're relatively indifferent to sports when they're not playing them.
Awesome. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of a pure love of the sport, right? Is it you love it for the kinesthetic, the play, I'm part of it, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I can totally go with that. So is kids are funny. Have your kids said or done something particularly funny that you guys bring up at stories at holidays and stuff to reminisce on?
And eventually at their wedding?
Yeah, no, we keep track of some of these things. I mean, Grace, everything she says is funny because she's 2.5, and it's just everything's funny. Benjamin is less funny than he was when he was little, especially than he was just, again, like a turnip truck, sweet, like just you fell right off the thing. And so like I remember one time he was, we were watching Jake and the Neverland Pirates, and he tried to trick me into getting to watch an extra. And I said, you just finished watching Jake. I don't know who you're trying to fool with that. And he said, well, I'm trying to fool you. And so kind of gave the store away there. Ethan, on the other hand, like Ethan does not have bedside manner. He's getting better at it. He's starting to understand a little bit more how his words sound to other people when he says them. He is very good at throwing shade. Not necessarily trying to be mean, but in a way that is just like, damn, like that's kind of harsh. And this is a mild version of that. I remember like there was a time when he was telling me he is like his vision of future and progress is built entirely around hover cars and the concept of hover cars and when hover cars are coming. And he said to me, he's like, well, you'll probably be dead by the time that hover cars are here. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then he realized that sounded a little bit harsh. He said, well, you'll probably get a couple years of hover cars and then you'll die. And that was his way of making up for it and being like, well, I'm sorry. Like, and so like, he is not here to sugarcoat your feelings.
Hey, that's a skill set that's needed too. So,
yeah.
We need honesty in the.
Yeah. I remember one time there was a boy who wasn't getting along with at school. And, and you were trying to, it's like, why do you think, this kid is, and he's like, I don't know. It's probably because he can't write his name. And it's like, damn, that is some impressive shade for a 4-year-old. It's like, wow. Biting.
I'm gonna keep Ethan on my good side.
That's no, don't make it angry. Our motto when he was really little, like in preschool and stuff, like was don't make it angry.
We had one of those too. We said, if you wake it up, it's yours. You break it,
yeah.
buy it.
Well, that's always a rule. But like, just don't make it angry. Like we would tell Ben, don't make it angry. And so because he would throw tantrum eventually, like, I mean, all kids do it, but like he would do it for 90 minutes at a time where he would keep screaming up. I mean, he was very persistent in that regard. I kind of admired it, but there's just nothing you do. And so again, he's the reason there's 6 years in between 2 and 3.
I get it. My mom always said, going from 1 to 2 is more than double the work. Going from 2 to 3 is usually not quite as bad, but it all depends on number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does help with the one good thing about there are other good things, but a good thing about the age gap is that the kids are old enough both to be self-sufficient in moments where like we do need to, one of us needs to do stuff with Grace or help with the baby when she was really small or whatever it might be. But they're also old enough to help, like, and actually legitimately help go, do something here. Can you get this ready, or whatever it might be. So
we'll give you the wipes. I ran out.
Yes. They can follow that direction and we'll do it. They have neither one of them has changed a diaper, but they will do other things. So
that's okay. They're familiar with it. They can babysit someday and earn some money.
Oh no, can and will.
For mom and daddy to go out to
as my wife told me when when Ben was a baby and I referred to it as baby, she said, it's not babysitting when it's your kid. And it's that's sort of going to be the attitude we have with Benjamin is it's not babysitting when it's your brother and your sister. That's just doing what is required of you to live in our house without paying rent.
Absolutely.
I like that line.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for sharing some of these fun stories. I could ask you 100 more questions, but we have a schedule, so we're going to stick
Okay.
to it. But before we dive into the boardroom portion, let's hear from our sponsor, Brainiac, and what they have to say.
When the only fish your kids will eat are gold, give them a Brainiac. Choose from snack favorites like applesauce and peanut butter that have a boost of omega-3s, choline, and other brain-building nutrients. To learn more, visit brainiacfoods.com.
All right, Brainiac, thank you so much. Brian, love to learn more about how you moved from St. Louis to LA.
By car.
By car, okay. It's a good start.
My brother was out here. I graduated from school, and he was out here writing and trying to work as an actor. He went to USC as a theater major, and so I took a screenwriting class my senior year in college. I did not want to go straight from undergrad to grad school. I wanted to take a year or two and do that. So I took my LSATs when I was a senior, fully expecting to use them at some point, and moved out here to write some stuff and generally, just sort of screw around and work for a couple of years and then go back to school. And it never got there. Like it's not that the screenwriting was particularly successful, because it wasn't. But there's a reason you don't see any of my credits or something like that around. But in the process of doing that, you were in the room with the right people and met this guy and met that guy and ended up getting involved with ESPN the magazine right when it was at its very beginning stages, and they were still looking for a lot of freelancers and a lot of contributors. And so we had a chance to kind of do that, and from that we're able to build we started doing magazine features for ESPN and doing some other contributions. That became something. One of our magazine features eventually led to an opportunity to write a book, which was a really cool opportunity. Nobody read the book, it's not the point, but so we were able to do that, and eventually that became the career that we were able to do. So it wasn't inside entertainment, but it sort of became something in sports media, and eventually to the LA Times, and still working, freelancing for ESPN and ESPN Radio eventually, and then The Athletic. And so a lot of stuff. So that's sort of how that evolution came about, completely by accident. Neither one of us have a background in journalism. We learned as we went along.
Got it. And are you and Andy a package deal, or do you guys independently do stuff as well?
We do some stuff independently. There's certain things that we do together. Most of this sports work, if not, is a lot of it is sort of branded together, even if we would write under separate bylines and pitch things. I did some freelance work with some tech, sort of sports tech stuff, which actually eventually led to some tech writing outside of sports, which is eventually how we ended up connecting. So but so things like that we operate independently, but as sort of radio entities or with the podcasts and stuff like that, we generally have always worked together.
Got it. And your focus on the Lakers primarily, is that just because geographically where you're at and kind of the work you've done, or is there
a lot of it is
underlying passion coming from St. Louis that you just always
loved the Lakers? deep that's Lakers country. I was more indifferent to basketball than most sports. I loved sports growing up. I played everything as a kid. I played basketball up until 8th grade, mostly because my high school, you did a rotation of stuff. And I hated wrestling. Wrestling was one of those, but the only way to get out of wrestling was to be on the basketball team. So I played basketball mostly to get out of, I very low interest. We didn't have an NBA team. St. Louis U was periodically good, but not great. And so like the closest thing to a team that people cared about was University of Missouri. And so I watched that when I was little, and I would shoot baskets and I would do stuff like that. But the NBA was a total non-entity for me sports wise. My brother went to USC and became a Lakers fan when he moved out here for school. But a lot of it is proximity. It's, we turned the magazine writing into the work we did with the LA Times. They were launching a Lakers blog and asked us to do it. And so that got us into covering the team specifically, as opposed to sort of doing more broad NBA stuff. but that's pretty common in sports. Very rarely do people go and cover either their hometown team or the team they're, the team that they were a fan of growing up. You generally go where the work is.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of that, you're now doing a daily podcast called Locked On Lakers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what's the kind of scope of what that looks like and what you guys do daily or talk about?
Yeah,
daily?
sure. This was a style of podcasting and a network that was launched by David Locke, who's the uh, lead broadcaster for the Utah Jazz. And he created and kind of had an idea of doing daily shows back now. It's pretty ubiquitous. The Times is doing it, and the Athletic, ESPN, almost everybody has some form of a daily podcast. But this at the time was fairly unusual. And so it's a daily podcast centered around in our case the Lakers. And yeah, I mean it would have been nicer if the Lakers had advanced a couple more rounds, because the offseason, I'm starting to wonder how we're going to fill this time. But the Lakers are great because there is really no offseason for them. There's no time where the interest goes down. So every day we do, we sit down Monday through Friday and we broadcast, and you can bring in interviews, and we're going to start doing live shows and all that stuff. So it's as they say, wherever you find your podcasts, iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever it might be, like it is a daily thing. And you're surprised like how actually relatively easy it is to come up with something to talk about for 25 to 35 minutes with this team.
So it's safe to say that you're talking about all the errors that the management's made in trades, as well as what's on the local nacho vending cart in section 237. Everything. Okay.
Everything. The nacho cart will become a topic, I'm sure, at some point over the summer.
Yeah, well, up here, in the Bay Area, it's a garlic fry stand at whatever section. So what does, most of our podcast listeners listen, they don't actually produce. So curious to know what is daily podcasting? What does it entail to actually produce one of those shows that's an hour long?
It's funny. My brother and I did a show, which we called the Late Night Happy Hour, which was an hour long nightly talk show. And that we self-produced, and actually we stopped doing it because it was an enormous amount of work for something that we weren't making. There was no revenue attached to it. This is actually much simpler. Like, it's because there's no guests, because there's no coordination. It's like, we talk to each other. My brother and I talk to each other. We decide to kind of pick the topics, and we kind of break it down. We've been doing podcasting and doing radio long enough to kind of have a pretty good handle on how to do the prep. And the back end machinations for it are relatively simple in terms of editing. I try not to make a ton of mistakes, and so that cuts down on the editing process. But when you're doing something, the contrast to doing something daily or doing something that's very, very web based. We have a YouTube channel. Locked On Lakers has a YouTube channel, but it's still the audio is still the core of it. And so there's no expectation yet of a heavily produced, graphically enhanced kind of thing. It is difficult. Like, I think people think, you sit down and to do a podcast, it's very simple. To do a nightly show, on YouTube or something like that, it's just, you find somebody, sit down and talk to them. The legwork that's required. There's a reason radio shows have producers. We did for 5 years, Andy and I would do once a week at NPR. And at one point we're, talking to them about doing a daily, a weekly sports kind of thing. And they were like, we're really sorry. We can only give you, I think they said 2 producers for it. And we were like, are you kidding? Like, because the idea we'd even get one was so foreign to us. We'd been self-producing our stuff for so long. It makes an enormous difference. Like, especially now when you need video and you want things to look good and do it, like, it is a lot of work. And so the infrastructure for, the giant podcasts that you hear, whether it's a news one like the Daily at the New York Times, some of the stuff you see on the Ringer or whatever it might be, they have teams of people who are dedicated to booking guests, to doing making sure the audio is clean. I mean, it's just an enormous amount of work if you really want to do something well.
Definitely. Talk to us a little bit more, since you did say that, you get to work from home quite a bit. How has the pandemic affected any of the work that you do on the podcasting, or even some of the other freelance work that you do?
Well, I mean, it's been, I mean, it's no secret. This has been a very difficult time for media. I mean, my brother and I, we had a contract with The Athletic, and they cut down on their people. We had a contract with ESPN Radio, and they cut down on their staffing. And so it's like, it had an impact. I mean, part of the reason we launched the happy hour is because our role at ESPN Radio was difficult to do because nobody was going anywhere. We did a lot of fill-in work.
Mhm.
We did pre and post game work and all that. There were no games, and nobody was going anywhere. So there was suddenly we went from being on, between individually or together, 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes, to not having anywhere to go. So, we had to make that, so working from home, it's remarkable to me how technology has allowed radio to do that. I mean, a lot of studio shows that you hear, whether at ESPN or other places, are still people working from home. And the ability to do that now is pretty remarkable. You see people broadcasting games from a studio in the city they are, instead of where the game is taking place, and it can be very seamless. And so I think what we're seeing is similar in a lot of ways to what we're seeing in other industries, where there's a recalibration of what is required, how many people are required, where is their presence required, and stuff like that. So it's, on the one hand, very easy to be able to record and do studio quality stuff with, a good microphone and a MacBook, but it's also, kind of disrupting the industry as people figure out what we really do need, and then just sucked tons of revenue away from media generally.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this has been great. Having grown up in Southern California and being an SC alum and huge fan, props to your brother. Fight on. I think it's time to move into Rapid Fire 5.
All right.
Here we go. Today for Rapid Fire 5, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions in rapid succession with 2 available answers, and only one can be selected.
All right. I can do that. I follow.
So it's okay if you can't. But anyway, we're going to get into it. Okay. Better Laker coach, Phil Jackson or Pat Riley?
Pat. I will say Pat. It's
Really?
tough.
All right.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll say Pat. Had a little bit of a longer run of sustained success.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, sure.
No explanation needed.
Okay, good. That's better.
Yeah, you don't have to explain your answers unless you want to. Best stadium for Lakers games, Great Western Forum or the Staples Center?
The Forum would have been better. I never saw a game there, but it's smaller. It's just, the Staples is very big.
It is very big.
Yeah.
I agree.
So it's just more of an intimate experience at the Forum.
Who wins a pickup basketball game, you or Andy?
Me. Andy is a terrible basketball player. I'm not good. Andy is, he'll tell you, he can't dribble. He's terrible. He's terrible. He's never beaten me in one-on-one.
As long as he's good on the mic, right? Doesn't matter.
He's never beaten me in one-on-one and never will.
All right. Better guest on your show, Jack Black or Billy Bob Thornton?
Ooh, they were both good. I think when we did it, and we've actually had him twice, Billy Bob Thornton was better because we had more time and it was less tightly related to sort of car wash style junket, 15 minutes and you're gone kind of thing.
Fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. Who's a better cook at home, you or your wife?
Depends on what's being cooked. She follows recipes better. She's a much better baker. I'm a better improvisational.
There you go.
5 things we have. I'm also much better at using up stuff so it doesn't go to waste.
We're living parallel lives, Brian.
We are.
Exactly the same thing in our
Okay.
house.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Last question. Career day at your kid's school. Would you rather wear Kurt Rambis taped glasses or Michael Cooper's shorts and knee-high socks?
Well, my glasses aren't that far away from Rambus. So, I need them anyway. So I'd probably go with that, but I do love the knee highs. Reminds me of my youth. I remember every picture of me from the 80s is with the socks pulled up over my knee.
The high shorts and the high socks, right?
Yeah, that's just how you rolled back then.
Absolutely.
I got, my legs are okay. People, I don't think would object to seeing that.
All right, Halloween's coming.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. It's time for Pocket Perspectives, quotable one-liner, mantra, or tweet that resonates with you or you live by. And Brian, you're up first.
We only have one rule at our house that we try to enforce. It is, I don't know how explicit I'm allowed to be. How explicit am I allowed to be?
Go for
As
it.
explicit as you can be.
Okay. Well, can I just wasn't sure about cursing if we were allowed to do
Go
that.
for it.
Okay. Don't be an asshole. Like that's really our only house rule. It's the easiest one to kind of flex and enforce. And we find that it's a good one. So that's sort of the rule we try to live by.
Which kid did you come up with that after?
All of them. That's the one thing that's been consistent through all three.
Fantastic. I love that. All right. So my pocket perspective, something that really resonated with me with what you said was don't make it angry.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm going to walk away with.
Yeah. And it's not always the best parenting style, but it is the path of least resistance sometimes. And that is really important.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
you need that. You got to pick your battles.
Don't make it hard. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. And their bad habits become their problem when they get older,
or some therapist down the road.
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome. So my pocket perspective today really goes back to something that you said around the awareness that you and your wife have. And so I like to think of it kind of powering the couple's awareness and really being able to have a solid foundation that's really healthy that the kids can then take energy from. So that's my pocket perspective today, power in the couple's awareness.
That's great. I like that a lot.
Well, Brian, thank you for being on today. It was great having you and chatting Lakers and broadcasting. Remember to check out his daily podcast, Locked on Lakers, anywhere you can find your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, or subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts. That's a wrap. Until next time, whether it's at bath time or in the boardroom, remember to cherish these moments and make a splash. Bye, everyone. Neen, it's that time for jokes.
Cool.
What do you got?
All right. Where do Volkswagen's cars go when they're old?
Volkswagen cars go when they're old. The junk pile.
Maybe. Or the old Volks home.
The old Volks home. That's awesome. Hey, you know how the summertime there's always new movies coming out?
Yeah.
Well, I saw that there's a new movie coming out about tractors. I just saw the trailer.
I think that your family would like that one.
Oh, definitely.
Why did the sailboat start smoking?
There was a fire on board?
Peer pressure.
Oh,
don't give in, kid. Don't give in.
Like peer as in kid, like friends peer, or like the peers that you see at the beach?
The peers that you see at the beach.
Peers that you see at the beach. All right. Well, talking to Brian and all the Lakers talk, I had to come up with a LeBron joke. So awesome. Here it goes. Why did LeBron leave Miami?
I don't know. Why did he leave Miami?
He couldn't take the heat. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
See you next week.